3 months ago, when our general manager was just hired, his name is Nick Youngman, because we got a new one last semester. I walked into his office his first day on the job and said, Nick, I want to make a voter guide this year. I want to make a full voter guide, and I want to do it well. So we spent 3 months developing this voter guide, and I'm really proud of the work that not just I, but about 25 different journalists, designers, editors, they all worked on it, and I'm super proud of what we did. But it was a process, so I'm gonna take you guys through exactly how this works. So step one, there are several steps to doing this. First one was to figure out what races were important. Now we're the student newspaper, so we have to determine which races are most relevant to students. So something like maybe a township clerk in the middle of rural Douglas County is not exactly the most useful race for students to know about. Same goes for county precinct committee people, which, yes, is an actual race at the local party level, and the statewide insurance commissioner, not exactly the most useful for students. So we went broadly. We went with other races like the county commission, statewide races such as the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and federal races such as the U.S. Senate race. And for those of you who don't know, Lawrence is now in Kansas congressional 1st district. But we also chose to cover the 3rd congressional district as well, because there's a significant KU presence in Johnson County, the KU Edwards campus and KU Medical Center. So we were really trying to develop this for everybody at the KU who wanted to read this. So once we did that, we had to figure out what issues were important. Now, this was a process. We asked KU, could you send this to a poll that we developed to all 23,000 students? And the provost's office said no. So we had to find a different way to do it. We found 30 different student groups who across different political and cultural spectrums. We sent the poll to the heads of those groups, and we asked those heads to distribute it to the members inside their clubs and groups, and we got a lot of responses, thankfully. So we were able to work with that. And what we asked in this poll was, what's your top 3 policy concerns? As you can see on the poll there, the economy, climate change, higher education, crime, abortion access, all of that. What are the top 3 things you were worried about this election? And what one question would you have for all your elected officials? And we found great success for that. After we did that, we put it all together in 6 different forms, reached out to the campaigns, and with all these questions and all these policy areas, over a 2-week period, we got, I'd say, about half the candidates to respond to us. You can see the response right there. We ran into the same problems that a lot of media organizations are running into nationwide, which is that a lot of elected officials just don't want to communicate with us as the media anymore. There's using social media and stuff like that to communicate with them instead. And so we tried to work with campaigns. We worked with the Amanda Atkins campaign in the hope that they were going to respond right up until the last minute. After we did that, we had to design the whole thing and print it and prep the website. Now, this took 3 days and a crew of 7 of us to design the whole thing, including the website. We printed 4,000 of these things, and we distributed them across campuses, several key different points. And we got a lot of good feedback about the issue. Obviously, we don't print a regular edition anymore. We're online only for news. And if you've ever been to a basketball game, you'll see that we print sports. We print sport issues, but this helped us serve as a test run for future printed news editions now that we don't print regular editions. After that, we had to cover the election. Election day was 2 weeks after we released. This election guide really helped us cover the election just because we were able to know what the policy points were and what some politicians would be saying with regards to these and their talking points. And something that we learned, the more campaigns that we have and respond to us in this voter guide, the more comprehensive our coverage can be, just because we know what's going to happen. And we'd also like to think that, anybody who viewed this voter guide, including college students, which is really who we made this for, were more informed when they went to the ballot box. And so we learned a lot from this effort. First off, we started this a little late. We started this in full force early September, and we really need to start doing this in early August. So we need to start communicating with student groups and campaigns, start planning for all of this earlier. And we also learned a lot about, government at both, not just the local, but the statewide level. And the Kansan's going to be increasing their coverage of student issues at the statewide level because of this issue. And possibly a national level, just because we have a lot of elected officials at the national level, at the federal level. And finally, plan for problems, and you won't have any. I think it's just the bottom line where that's concerned. So that's what I have. You can read our entire voter guide at kansan.com, kansan.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
So first question for Melinda, how do you make sure that international students and Americans without documentation, et cetera, are fully included and engaged in this campaign and feel safe in engaging in this type of work? And I guess that's actually something that all of our panelists could speak to. How are you thinking about undocumented folks and international students in the work that you're trying to do?
So for us, we don't register voters. We're a news organization. We distribute information. Anybody can read us. It's free to read the Kansan. But we also realized that just because we write it doesn't mean people are going to read it. That's why we made sure to reach out to different cultural groups. I think we reached out to I think the count was 12, representing different countries, ethnicities, groups that represented these different cultures, just to make sure that we were able to get the widest view possible when creating these questionnaires, when figuring out what information people wanted to know, just so that we could keep international students and other groups in mind.
So what is the current capacity for the UDK to cover like local, state, and federal government issues? Are there people that are designated to be doing that? And then also, are there any plans in terms of like coverage for the legislative session, as that just started and there's going to be a lot of wild and wacky things going on over the next few months with the legislature?
So I think that's an understatement, first off. Not gonna lie. But we do have people designated to cover city and county government. We hadn't been focusing so much as state and national government, just because last semester was my first semester on the job as news editor. And before I was news editor, I was a crime and public safety reporter, so I wasn't particularly involved in the political side of things. But my eyes have been opened, and I've seen now that we really do need to start covering things at the state level. So yes, we do have people for local issues. We're going to designate somebody for state level issues, and we're going to be doing that in collaboration with the KU Wire Service, which is an initiative run through the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. They have a group of usually 6 to 8 kids who will fully cover the legislature. And so we're going to cooperate with them on that and probably steal some of those stories. But we do want to start focusing on these issues a little more. I mean, because certainly back in August of 2022, some of you may remember the whole abortion amendment fight. That was something that really impacted students, and we did focus quite a bit of coverage on this is what's going to happen. Here's what you need to know. So yes, the answer is yes. We're going to increase coverage on that.
I did have a quick question for the UDK and you, Matthew.
Sure.
So in relation to your voter guide, I know you mentioned you had some difficulties reaching out to like certain campaigns. I guess like, how do you foresee filling those gaps in like next year's voter guide issue when you don't get the information? Are you going to sort of just review other stories where they've provided information, or would it be something that you just sort of like don't impact on the voter guide?
So next year, our voter guide will be primarily focused on the Lawrence Commission, because we have 3 seats coming up for election on that. What we did this time and what we plan to do next time is just say they did not respond. And we're trying to make a point there with that, is that you really need to engage with us so that we can help you get what your viewpoint is and what the information is out to everybody else. That's what we do. That is the business that we're in. So we're making a public stance on that. You got to respond to us, else we're not going to help you.
If it's at all relevant, and maybe it isn't, but like nonprofit 501c3 organizations that are doing voter guides, so very different. They're trying to inform their own constituencies, not for the broader public use, but they are also, as 501c3s, held to different rules about how you can engage in anything that could be construed as electioneering, that's trying to actually influence the outcome of an election, and C3s aren't allowed to do that. But if it's of help at all, their process is to set the same parameters for response for every candidate, and to share that with everybody. So maybe it's like you have 3 weeks, everybody gets it on the same day, you have the same amount of time, and then those who don't respond by that time are listed as a did not respond, which not only, and most, not really for nonprofits, it's not so much about saving the time, although I am imagining how much time it took all of you at the UDK to try to track folks down, but really so that they aren't seen as giving preferential treatment or accommodation to any candidate. Because if some candidates respond without, extra handholding by the team at the UDK, and others get, almost like a delivered on a silver platter kind of thing, then it can be seen that you're favoring one and not another. So that is not only potentially a time saver for you as a news institution, but also very definitely a way to ensure that allegations later of preferential treatment for one candidate or another are not going to have very much ground to make that argument, because you will have clearly applied the same rules to every campaign.
So I will say the rules are just a little bit trickier for us, just because even though we're an independent agency, we operate editorially independently, we're actually a function of the university. So we have to follow laws in accordance with the University of Kansas, any governmental institution. So it makes it a little bit trickier where that's concerned, but that is something that we do try and do, is treat every campaign fairly, and make sure that they all have the same amount of time. And we had a couple campaigns submit after the deadline, and I told them, no, I cannot publish. You missed the deadline. I'm sorry.